Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel. I've got a wonderful story today and it's sent to me from Gareth, who lives in Michigan, and he has a wonderful Bigfoot encounter to reveal to us, so I'm going to read you his story. Dear Sarah, I'm only 24 years old and my name is Gareth. I'd appreciate it very much if you could keep my details confidential and private for obvious reasons. My Bigfoot encounter happened when I was only 22 years old on a fishing trip at Lake Wegwas in Michigan, Northern Peninsula, which is near the town of Trout Lake. This was in the fall of 2018, only 2 years ago. The first time I'd ever heard of Bigfoot was through my younger brother, who is 15 years old, and yes, you've guessed right, he's obsessed with Bigfoot and Dogman stories. He loves it all. I have to tell you, at the time, I had teased my brother incessantly for believing in such a mythical creature such as Bigfoot. I would tell him all the time that no way would such a creature ever exist. Where are all the dead bodies? I challenged him. We would have discovered animal carcasses by now if the creature was real, I would say. My brother was not bothered at all by all my challenging outbursts. He was defiant about the existence of Bigfoot. I know he's real, he insisted. He showed me some video clips from YouTube and Bigfoot sightings. I just told him that someone dressed up in an ape costume and pretended to be a Bigfoot and was hiding in the undergrowth. Why can we not see the creature clearly? I sniggered. I do want to warn any skeptics out there that the universe does have a monumental sense of humour and an enormously funny way of showing you up when you get things so seriously wrong. So do not be too hasty in being skeptical. It could definitely backfire on you, as it has done with me. What I thought I knew, I did not know at all. What I thought was a mythical creature was in fact real. What I thought was impossible was possible. So now I really do have to re-examine my insane skepticism that has caused me to be closed-minded until now. So I would like to applaud all your listeners, because if they're listening to this Bigfoot channel, they clearly believe in Bigfoot, for being so open-minded and for listening to their gut instincts about things, rather than the cynical voice in your head that tells you that something is not possible. Anyway, onwards and upwards with my story. I was driving my beat-up old red Chrysler, and I was on my way to meet up with two mates for some fishing. We went to Lake Wegwas very regularly to fish for trout because we all lived in the Michigan area and it was not far for us to get to the lake. We would have a lovely day, I thought to myself. We could open up the odd beer and eat some delicious baked trout cooked with lashings of lemon butter over a small portable gas hob we always brought with us. Nothing tasted better in my mind than fresh fish directly out of the lake. But that was, of course, if we managed to catch anything. Luckily, one of my buddies was called Chris, and he was a dab hand with a fishing rod. He had been fishing since he was 4 years old, and if he could not catch any fish, then I knew that nobody could. I was pretty convinced we would get a good catch that day, and my mouth started to salivate at the very thought of the delicious piece of grilled trout that we would get. I was already running late, which was incredibly unusual for me because I'm usually punctual. The alarm had failed to wake me up early, and then I found myself dealing with a flat tire. Damn, I thought, this is really going to spoil the day. I sent my friends an SMS telling them I would be running late, but that they should proceed without me at the lake. I'll meet you at our usual fishing spot, I told them. It was already 9:30 when I finally arrived at the Wegwas Lake. Usually we would start fishing as soon as it was light. It was the best time to fish, and I knew I had already missed out. I did wonder if the guys had caught anything yet. I did hope so. It was an unusually quiet morning, and there was no activity around the lake, which was unusual, because you would nearly always hear the sounds of duck or geese, but this morning it seemed quieter than usual. I started to move towards the west side of the lake where I expected to find my friends. From a distance I could hear their familiar voices. Boy, their laughter was so loud, and it was a drunken kind of laughter, as if they had been drinking excessively. That was extraordinary. It wasn't like them, I thought. We never drank this early, nor did we ever drink enough to get really tipsy. What the heck did they think they were doing, I thought. I then spotted them trying to fish from a distance, and it was a sight for sore eyes because they were wobbling so much. It looked as if their fishing rods were vibrating under their movements, and they appeared to be laughing all the time. I was quite sure that every fish in the entire lake had been alerted to their presence. They would never catch any fish at this rate, I thought. As I drew closer, I heard their raised, excitable voices enabled me to hear the tail end of a conversation, and it went something like this. And I kissed his girlfriend. You should have seen his face. And they both roared with laughter. Did he beat you up? You bet. He broke my rib. They just seized up with laughter. They were laughing non-stop. I was relieved to see that there were no other people by the lake. My buddies were making a huge spectacle of themselves, and this was embarrassing for me, especially as I was stone cold sober by comparison. If they were not careful, someone would phone the police, and my friends would be herded up for being a public nuisance, I thought. It was a spectacular day. All the trees around the lake were golden in colour, and the air felt crisp and fresh. Suddenly, in my peripheral vision, I thought I saw a shape moving in the undergrowth, close to where my friends were standing on the long wooden fishing deck. Whatever it was, it appeared to have its eyes totally fixed on my friends, almost like a predator stalking its prey. This did not look good. The creature looked strangely familiar in a funny sort of way, and then it just hit me like a tornado of horror. OMG, I gasped. It looks like the Sasquatch pictures my brother had often shown me. No, surely not. No, this is a case of mistaken identity, I told myself. This has got to be a bear. But in my shock, I realized that this was no bear. The animal was clearly bipedal. He was peering behind a tree, swaying his cone-shaped head from side to side. His whole body was covered with brown-red hair, like the colour of a red setter. His hair looked grubby and unkempt, and my goodness, he was tall. I could hardly believe it. He must have been 9 feet at least, I thought. This is crazy. I could only see the back view of the creature, but I noticed very strong muscle density in his back. He had huge biceps and a massive chest, and the head of the creature, as I said, just kept swaying. I really thought that I was in the middle of a crazy dream, but I was not. I was seeing a real live Sasquatch, and he was intimidating. I then noticed that the creature was throwing big boulders into the water close to where my friends were standing. This action was making my friends roar with laughter. It was you, giggled Chris. I saw you. You threw the stone at me. And they roared with laughter again and again. This was worrying, I thought. Was this creature trying to hurt them, or was he trying to chase them away? I could not be sure, but it occurred to me that my friends could be in serious trouble. Then I did the craziest thing. I shouted out as loudly as I could. How's it, guys? How's it, I called. It's me, it's me. I saw my 2 friends turning around to look in my direction with surprise. I knew the creature's eyes had turned away from my friends and were now fixed on me, because I could feel them. I did not look in his direction, because I wanted to act as if I had not seen him. Yet I continued to feel those eyes boring into me, and it was terrifying. My heart was beating so loudly through my chest that I could almost hear every beat. I walked towards my friends, trying to look as casual as possible. I did not want the animal in any way to know that I had seen him. We must get out of here now, I said. I could see dozens of empty beer cans on the ground. I then saw that there were no more beer cans in the cooler box, and so an idea sprung to my mind. I knew how to lure my friends away and get them back to my car as quickly as possible. Come back to my car, I said. I've got tons of beers in there. My friends needed little prompting. More beer is always a good idea, I'm sure you've noticed, to anyone who's in a drunken stupor. They both followed me to the car, staggering like two heavy-duty drunks. I firmly pushed them down onto the back seats of my car and locked the side doors. I jumped into the driving seat as fast as I could and then pressed the accelerator pedal down as quickly as possible and drove that ancient Chrysler as fast as I could away from the lake. In my rear-view mirror, I caught a glimpse of the creature watching us as we sped off. Luckily, my friends had both fallen asleep in the back of the seat of my car and were snoring loudly, so they weren't causing me problems during the journey home. When we did get home to my house in Michigan, I locked them both up in the car and left them there to sober up. Even though our expensive fishing gear and tackle was still by the lake, I had no intention of going and retrieving any of it. As far as I was concerned, I did not want to get anywhere near that creature again. It had scared the living hell out of me. You can imagine how furious my friends were with me to suddenly find themselves locked up in the car. Once they sobered up, they were a little embarrassed, to say the least. But this is the interesting part of it all. It transpired that when they got to the lake, they both had an eerie feeling that they were being watched by something. It creeped them out so much that they started to feel anxious. They also noticed that everywhere around the lake was unusually quiet, and there were no ducks or bird calls anywhere. Chris had suggested having a beer to calm themselves down because he knew that alcohol was a powerful relaxant, and they both felt they needed it. They just felt so much on edge. So one beer had started to do the trick, and it had calmed them down, and they felt more relaxed. But they thought another beer might do even more calming effects on them. It had worked until they had drunk their way through a couple of six-packs. They did have a recollection of large stones being thrown in the water, but they could barely remember much more. I told them everything that had transpired that morning and all about the Sasquatch, and they believed me 1000%. They said the feeling they both had by the lake was unlike anything they'd ever felt before. They had both wanted to leave at once, but could not because they were waiting for me to join them. Needless to say, none of us went back to get any of our gear, and Chris even paid a friend to pick up his car from the lake and drive it back to his home. That was how scared he was about going back. We have never been back fishing since. My little brother, who believes in Bigfoot, did find it strange that I stopped teasing him about his belief in the mythical creature. Probably because he's not so mythical after all. With regards. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful, wonderful letter. And until next time, good night.